Okay, so this video is to get us ready for the test on 4-2. You're going to want a review sheet, a graphing calculator, or an online graphing calculator. Some phones have an app, and you're also going to want some scratch paper. So on number 1 and 2, they simply asked me to evaluate these two problems, and we're going to use our calculator to do that. So when you have something in parentheses like this, you read this as 9 choose 3. So the first thing I told you to do is you type in your number on top, which is 9. Then you're going to hit the math button in your calculator. You're going to arrow over to probability. You're going to go down and choose the third one. So that says 9 choose 3. So 9 choose 3, I hit enter on my calculator, and the answer is 84. And that's it. We're going to repeat that right here on number 2. So why don't you try it real quick? Alright, so you should have typed in 6. Hit the math button, arrow over to PRB, choose the third one down, then I'm going to type in a 1, and 6 choose 1 equals 6. Alright, so you'll have 2 of those on your test. It's just a matter of remembering what buttons to choose. So remember, you type in the number up top, so you type in the number, then you're going to hit the math, then we arrowed over to PRB, then we chose the third one, which was NCR, and then we typed in the last number. So after you type in the number, hit the math button, highlight PRB, choose the third one down, and then you're going to type in your last number. And that's where we got 84 and 6. Okay. On number 3, 4, and 5, they want me to find the indicated coefficient for the term. To find an indicated term, we're going to use this formula at the top. It says you're going to do n choose r times a to the n minus r times b to the r. So in order to use this formula, I need to know that n, r, a, and b. So n is always going to be your power. So on number 3, my n equals 12. R is always 1 less than the term number they're asking for. So if they're asking for the 7th term, R is equal to 6. A is going to be whatever the first number is in the parentheses. So my first number is 1x. So A is equal to 1x. And B is going to be whatever the second term is in the parentheses. So B is going to be equal to negative 3y. So now that I know N, R, A, and B, it's a matter of just plugging into this formula. So it says to do N choose R, so 12 choose 6 times A to the N minus 1. My A is 1x, so I'm going to have 1x raised to the N minus R. Well, 12 minus 6 is 6 times B to the R. My B is negative 3y. And I'm going to raise it to the r, which is 6. From here, it's just a matter of typing numbers in my calculator. So I'm going to go do 12 choose 6. So 12 math 6. So 12 choose 6 is 924. This first number is 924. 1 to the 6 is just 1, and x to the 6 is x to the 6. Times, I need to do negative 3 to the 6th power and y to the 6th power. Because it's negative, I have to put parentheses around it. And negative 3 to the 6th is 729. And then I also have y to the 6th. So the last thing I have to do is multiply the coefficients. So 924 times 1 times 726. So 924 times 1 times 729. My coefficient is going to be 673,596. So the final answer for this one is 673,596, x to the 6, y to the 6. If they ask for just the coefficient, I just need to give that first part. If they ask for the whole term, I give the entire answer. Okay, number 4 is going to work the exact same way. So why don't you pause the video right quick and see if you can do both 4 and 5, and then come back and check your answers. Okay, so hopefully you finished both problems. The first one on number 4, my n is our power, which is 11. Our r is 9 because it's 1 less than the tenth. They asked for the tenth, so you always do 1 less than. The a is the first number, or first term, which is 1x. Your b is your second term, which is negative 3y. I plug into the formula and I have 11 choose 9 times. It says you're going to take your a to the n minus r. So 11 take away 9 is 2. So 1x squared. And then it says to multiply it by b, which is negative 3, raised to the r power, which is 9. I go type all of this in my calculator. And I get a negative answer. That's absolutely okay. X squared, y to the 9th. Again, if they ask you for just the coefficient, you give them the number out front. If they ask for the whole term, include the x squared and the y to the 9th. Number 5 specifically asked in this problem for the coefficient. So again, they asked for the fourth term. That means that r is 3, 1 less. The power outside the parentheses was 4, so n is 4. The first term is 2x, so a is 2x. Your second term is 3, so b is 3. I go plug into the formula at the top. When I plug everything in, I have 4 choose 3 times 2x to the first times 3 to the third. I type this in my calculator and I get 216x. They just want the coefficient, so it is 216. Alright, 6 and 7 want me to use the binomial theorem to expand x minus r to the 5th and x plus 4 to the 4th. For this particular problem, I'm going to use this formula up top. I'm going to need scratch paper. So if you had scratch paper, this is the time you're going to want to use it. So on number 6, they want me to expand x minus r to the 5th. And the formula at the top of the page tells me that my first term is called the x term, the second term is called my a term, and the power is n. And the pattern is going to be n choose 0 times x to the n plus n choose 1, a to the first, x to the n minus 1. So when you do this, it's just a quick pattern. So you're going to take the power up the top, 5, choose 0. It's always going to start at 0. And then you're going to take your first term, which is x, and you're going to raise it to the power that's out here. Times, you're going to take your second term, negative 1r, and raise it to the 0. So here's what's going to happen in the pattern. The first and the last are going to start at 0, and the middle term is going to start at the power. And as I move to the right, the two on the outside are going to go up by 1, and the one in the middle is going to go down by 1. So the next one is going to be 5 choose 1, x to the 4th, times negative 1r to the first. These both went to 1, the middle one went to 4. And I'm going to keep this pattern going until I have 5 choose 5. So the next part of my pattern will be 5 choose 2, x to the third, negative 1r to the second. These both went to 2, the middle one went down to 3. 5 choose 3, x squared, negative 1r to the third. These are both now 3. I'm going to go again. So 5 choose 4, x to the first, and then negative 1r to the fourth. Okay, and I said we had to go until I got to 5 choose 5. So I have to go one more time. So I have 5 choose 5, x to the 0, negative 1r to the 5th. So let's go look at the pattern one more time. I said that the first and the last will always start with 0. So 5 choose 0 and negative 1r to the 0. The middle term will start at the power. As I move to the right, the ones on the outside go up by 1, and the ones on the inside go down by 1. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, none. From here, we're going to pick up our calculator and we're going to type these in just like we did with these, but we're going to have to do them a term at a time. So I have to go type in 5 choose 0, and it's going to tell me in my calculator that that is 1 times x to the 5th times negative 1 to the 0 is 1r. So, I'm sorry, r to the 0 is also 1, so the whole thing is 1. So my first term is 1x to the 5th times 1, which is just x to the 5th. Now I'm going to go do the next term. I'm going to type in my calculator, 5 choose 1, and a 5 is going to pop out. Then I have times x to the 4th times negative 1r to the 1st is negative 1r. So 5 times negative 1 is going to give me negative 5x to the 4th r. Okay. Next term. 5 choose 2. 10 pops out on the calculator. X to the 3rd. Negative 1r squared is actually a positive 1r squared. So now I have plus 10x to the 3rd r squared. All right. Next term. 5 choose 3 is also 10. I have an x squared times negative 1r to the 3rd is negative 1r to the 3rd. So 10 times negative 1 is negative 10 x squared r to the 3rd. 5 choose 4, so now I'm at this term, is 5 times x times negative 1 r to the 4th raised to the 4th is a positive 1 r to the 4th. So I have plus 5x r to the 4th. All right, and the last one, 5 choose 5 is 1, x to the 0 is 1, and negative 1 r to the 5th is negative 1 r to the 5th. So it's plus negative 1 r to the 5th. All right, so the last thing I need to fix is where I have all these double signs. So my final answer is x to the 5th minus 5x to the 4th r plus 10x to the 3rd r squared minus 10x squared r to the 3rd plus 5x to the 1st r to the 4th minus r to the 5th. And there you go. You have expanded x minus r to the 5th. So why don't we pause the video, go try number 7, and then come back and check your answers. It's going to follow this exact same pattern. Okay, so let's go see how you did on number 7. So this time in the pattern, my biggest power is 4. So I'm going to start off with 4 choose 0. Remember, we always start the bottom one at 0. The middle one's going to be to the power of the problem, so x to the 4th. And then I take my last term and also raise it to the 0. These will always be the same. So I'm going to go, on the outsides they're going to go up by 1. So 4 choose 0, 4 to the 0. So 1, and then they go to 2, and then they go to 3, and then they go to 4. The number in the middle is going to go down by powers, x to the 4th, x to the 3rd, x squared, x to the 1st, x to the 0. Outsides go up by 1, inside goes down by 1. Then I go type them in my calculator. 4 choose 0 is 1. I bring down the x to the 4th. 4 to the 0 is 1. 1 times x to the 4th is x to the 4th. 4 choose 1 is 4. 4 to the 1st is 4. 4 times 4 is 16, and I bring down my x to the 3rd. 4 choose 2 is 6. X squared. 4 squared is 16. 6 times 16 is 96. I bring down my x squared. 4 choose 3 is 4. 4 to the 3rd is 64. 64 times 4 is 256, and I bring down my x. 4 choose 4 is 1. X to the 0 is 1. 4 to the 4th is 256. So the answer is plus 256. Okay, so we have now done 6 and 7 on a piece of scratch paper. On 8 through 12, they want to know which of these are polynomials. If they are, state the degree. If they are not, tell why not. So in order for a polynomial, in order for a function to be a polynomial, it had 3 things it had to meet. One was that it had to have just one variable throughout the whole problem. 2, the exponents could not be negatives or be fractions. And the third requirement was that they were all real numbers. So let's go look at number 8. It only has one variable, just x's. It does have an exponent of 2, but that's a positive and it's a whole number, so that part's good. And there's no imaginary numbers. So yes, this is a polynomial. And when they ask you for the degree, you're going to pick the largest degree after you've simplified. Because this says 4x times x plus 3 squared, for multiplication, you need to add your exponents. So if I have x squared and x to the first, it means my biggest degree is going to be x to the third. So this will have a degree of 3. Number 9. It only has one letter, just x's. It has an exponent of 4 and exponent of 2. They're both positives, and there's no fractions, so that's a check. There's no imaginary numbers. So yes, this is a polynomial. I cannot simplify these two because they're not like terms. So the biggest exponent that I have is 4, so this is a degree of 4. Number 10, I only have one letter again. I do have an exponent of 2, but it's positive and it's not a fraction, so we're good. And again, there's no imaginary numbers. So yes, this is a polynomial. The biggest exponent in here is 2, so it's degree 2. On number 11, it says that I have the square root of x plus x squared, one variable. One thing I do know from earlier in the year, if you have a square root of x, it's really x to the 1/2. So now I have a fraction exponent, which is not okay. So the answer is no, because we have a fraction exponent. Number 12, I have one letter, just an x, so we're good there. But I have an x in the denominator. And when you have an x in the denominator, it means that it could have been written as x to the negative 1. Because I have an x to the negative 1, it's not okay. So this is not a polynomial because you cannot have a negative exponent. On 13, 14, 15, and 16, they're asking you to use transformations of the graphs of x to the 4th and x to the 5th. So what they're asking you to remember is not only your transformations, but that even graphs all look parabolic, and odd graphs all have a right arm going up and a left arm going down. So on number 13, they tell me x plus 1 in parentheses to the 4th. So the first thing I'm going to remember is because it's in parentheses, I'm going to do the opposite, and it's a horizontal change. So because it says plus 1, I'm going to go to the left 1, and because it's an even power, I know it's going to be shaped parabolic. On number 14, it has an x minus 2 in parentheses. Again, that means I'm going to have a horizontal change, but I'm going to do the opposite because it's in parentheses, so I'm going to go right 2. 5 is an odd powered function, so it's going to look with a right arm up and a left arm down. Number 15, I've got a minus 3, but it's not in parentheses. So when you have a minus 3, it's a vertical change, and a minus means I'm going to go down 3. It's an odd function, so right arm up, left arm down. Number 16, I have a minus 1 with no parentheses, so again it's a vertical change. It says minus, so I go down 1. It's a 4 power, which is even, so it looks parabolic. If you get confused about any of these, you are allowed to use the calculator on your test. You could simply type them in your calculator, and that would probably help you. Okay, let's go look at the back of the review. So on 17 and 18, it asks me to form a polynomials whose zeros and degrees are given. So one thing we learned about zeros is that you could write the factors of a 0 by writing down the opposite in the parenthesis. So if they're telling me that I have a 0 at negative 1, it means that x plus 1 is a factor. If I have a 0 at positive 1, it means x minus 1 is a factor. If I have a 0 at positive 3, it means x minus 3 is a factor. So I did the first part, write the factors, check. Now what they want me to do is FOIL. So I'm going to go multiply these two together first, and I get x squared plus x minus 1. When I combine like terms, I get x squared minus 1. Now I'm going to take this answer and multiply it by x minus 3. So we're going to FOIL again. And I get x to the third minus 3x squared minus x plus 3. And that's it. So pause the video real quick, Go try number 18. Same process. Okay, so let's see how you did. It says I have a 0 at x minus 3, so I wrote in the parentheses x plus 3. I have a 0 at just 0, which means I just need an x all by itself, no plus, no minus, just an x. And I have a 0 at 4, which means I need to write the factors x minus 4. And it doesn't matter the order you write these in. I'm going to go multiply these two together first. So x times x is x squared, x times 3 is 3x. Now I'm going to bring down the answer from above, and I'm going to FOIL. X squared times x is x to the third. X squared times negative 4 is negative 4x squared. 3x times x is 3x squared, and 3x times negative 4 is negative 12x, and then I combine my like terms. On 19 and 20, they want to know if c is a factor of this polynomial. In order to do that, we're going to do synthetic division. If my last number equals 0, then yes, it is a factor. If it does not, then the answer is no. So when we're doing synthetic division, the first thing we talked about was that your exponents have to go in order from biggest to smallest, and if there are any gaps, we're going to fill them in with 0. So I'm going to go check my exponents first. X to the third, x to the second, x to the first, x to the none. Okay, so they're in order. So I'm going to go write down my coefficients. 4, negative 3, negative 8, and positive 4. And they want me to try dividing by 3. Okay, so the rules for synthetic division are you drop the first term, and then I'm going to multiply, add, multiply, add, multiply, add. So we're going to do 4 times 3 is 12. And now I'm going to add. Negative 3 plus 12 is 9. And then I'm going to multiply. 9 times 3 is 27. And then we're going to add negative 8 plus 27, I believe, is 19. Now I'm going to multiply. 19 times 3 is 57. And 57 plus 4 is 61. This last number does not equal 0. Because it doesn't equal 0, that means that this is not an x-intercept, which also means that x minus 3 is not a factor. So I divided everything by 3. I did not get a 0. That means x minus 3 is not a factor. Let's go try 20. It's going to work the same way. Again, check your exponents first. X to the 6th, x to the 4th. X to the 5th was missing. So 6, 5, 4, 3 is missing. So 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, and x to the 1st is missing. That means everywhere I put an arrow, I'm going to replace that with a 0. So I've got a 2 for x to the 6th, 0 x to the 5th, negative 18 x to the 4th, 0 x to the 3rd, 1 x squared, 0 x's, and a negative 9. So 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, none. And I'm going to try dividing by negative 3. Okay, same process. Drop the first term. 2 times negative 3 is negative 6. 0 plus negative 6 is negative 6. Negative 6 times negative 3 is a positive 18. Negative 18 plus 18 is 0. 0 times negative 3 is 0. 0 plus 0 is 0. 0 times negative 3 is 0. 1 plus 0 is 1. 1 times negative 3 is negative 3. 0 plus negative 3 is negative 3. Negative 3 times negative 3 is positive 9. And negative 9 plus 9 is 0. All right, so this time I got my 0. That means that this is an x-intercept, which also means that yes, x plus 3 is a factor. And then if it is a factor, they want me to write the remaining as a quotient. So this right down here would be my quotient. These remaining numbers, these are the coefficients of 1 less than the exponent I started with. So I started with x to the 6th, so this is going to be 2x to the 5th minus 6x to the 4th. I have 0x cubes, 0x squareds. I have 1x to the 1st minus 3. So one more time. If you have a 0 here, that means this is an x-intercept. So x plus 3 is a factor. These are the coefficients of one less than what I started with. I started with x to the 6th. So this is 2x to the 5th minus 6x to the 4th, 0x to the 3rds, 0x squareds, 1x to the 1st minus 3. On 21 and 22, they want you to list your potential zeros. When they ask you to list the potentials, this is when you do the p divided by q. So you need to remember that the first number is your p and the coefficient of the first number is your q. So p and q. And you're going to list all the factors of p and all the factors of q, and you're going to divide them. So factors of p, plus or minus 1. Factors of q, plus or minus 1, and plus or minus 3. And then we're going to go divide them. So I'm going to have 1 divided by 1 is 1, and 1 divided by 3 is 1/3. So these are all the possible zeros. It doesn't mean they'll all work. It just means that these are the ones that I would go try to see if I can make them equal 0. 22. You're going to do the exact same thing. Remember, the last number is the p, the first number is the q. We're going to go divide all the factors of p by all the factors of q. So factors of 2 are 1 and 2. Factors of 3 are 1 and 3. Okay, now I'm going to go divide both of the numbers on top by 1. So 1 divided by 1 is 1. 2 divided by 1 is 2. Now I'm going to go divide both numbers on top by 3. 1 divided by 3 is 1/3. And 2 divided by 3 is 2/3. So these are all my possible zeros. Again, they won't all work, but these are all the possibilities. On 23, 24, and 25, they want me to go solve the equation in the real number system. All they really want to know is which of these numbers, when I do synthetic division, like what we did up here, which of these numbers, and these are my only choices, -3, -2, -1, 1, 2, and 3, which of these, when I do synthetic division, will give me a 0. So you're going to go do synthetic division with -3, -2, -1, 1, 2, and 3, and if it gives you 0, then it's going to be an answer. If you're watching this video, you're about to get a shortcut. Another way to do this would be to type it in your calculator. So x raised to the 3rd plus 2x squared minus 5x minus 6. And what I'm going to go do is I'm going to go look at my table. And I'm going to look at my table at -3, -2, -1, 1, 2, and 3. And if any of these give me a 0, then it would work with synthetic division. So I'm going to go start my table at -3. At -3, y equals 0. That means that's one of my answers. At -2, y equals 4. Not it. At -1, my y equals 0. So my other answer is -1. At 1, y equals -8. At 2, y equals 0. And at 3, y equals 24. This means I have 3 answers. If I were to do synthetic division, -3 would give me a 0, -1 would give me a 0, and 2 would give me a 0. It also means if I go look at my picture, that it's going to cross the x-axis at -3, -1, and +2. You can do the exact same steps for 24 and 25. Alright, so I'm going to pause the video. Why don't you go try it? Okay, so after typing these in my calculators and checking just these exact x values, on 24, the only place that it equaled 0 was at 3, and on 25, the only places that it equaled 0 were at -2, -1, and 1. Again, you don't have to do it this way. You could go perform synthetic division using -3, -1, and 2, and they'd all give me a 0 right here at the end. On 26 and 27, they want me to find the remaining zeros. And we learned sometime this week that anytime you have an imaginary answer, a plus bi, it will always come with a partner called its conjugate, and it will be a minus bi. Notice only the signs in front of the i's are changing, not the numbers out front. So if they tell me I have a 0 at 3 and 4 minus I, the one with the I will have a conjugate pair. If this has a minus, then I need the one with a plus. This is the one that's missing. Okay, over here I have two answers with i's. That means I'm going to have two pairs. So the partner for I is just negative I, and the partner for 1 plus I would be 1 minus I. So those were the two that were missing. On 28 and 29, we learned how to do these in class this week also. The first step was to solve each factor for 0. So I get x equals 3 and x equals 2. The next thing we talked about doing was putting these on the number line. So I've got a factor at 2, a critical point at 2 and a critical point at 3. Because this says less than instead of less than equal to, I do open circles. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to plug in numbers to the left of 2, between 2 and 3, and to the right of 3. And I'm looking for answers that give me negatives. So I'm going to use my calculator again. And I'm going to plug in right here to this. So I need a number to the left of 2. An easy number to the left of 2 is 0. So 0 minus 3, parentheses, 0 minus 2. If I plug those in, I get a positive answer of 6. So I'm going to put a P right here. That means everything to the left of 2 will give me a positive answer. I need a number between 2 and 3. I'm going to use 2.5. So 2.5 minus 3, parentheses, 2.5 minus 2. I have a negative answer. I don't care what the answer is, just that it's negative. Now I'm going to go take a number to the right of 3. So I've got 3 minus 3. I've got 3 minus 2. And that gives me, oh, I said a number to the right and I chose 3, so let's try that again. So 4 is to the right of 3. So 4 minus 3 and 4 minus 2, and that gives me a positive. So now what I have to decide is where should I shade? The original problem told me that I wanted to pick numbers that are less than 0. Less than 0 means negative. So I want the numbers that are negative. The only choices for negative are the answers between 2 and 3. Pause the video, go try 29, come back and check. Okay, so let's see how you did. So I said x plus 1 equals 0, so x equals negative 1. X minus 4 equals 0, so x equals positive 4. I went and put both numbers on the number line, negative 1 and positive 4. I picked a number to the left of negative 1 and got a positive answer. I picked a number between negative 1 and 4 and got a negative answer. I picked a number to the right of 4 and got a positive. I go back and look at the original problem. It says it wants answers that are greater than or equal to 0. So it wants positive answers. So I want all the answers to the left of 0, but I want to include 0. So I mean 1, so negative 1, so I use a bracket. And I want the answers to the right of 4, but I want to include 4. So I do a bracket. All right, so I'm going to go to number 30, and then I'm going to let you try 31. So 30 is different because it's a fraction. You're going to solve the top just like we did over here. So I'm going to have x minus 1 equals 0, so x equals 1. The bottom, I'm looking for the restriction. I know I can never, ever, ever divide by 0. So if I can't divide by 0, that means x cannot equal negative 3. If this were a negative 3, the bottom would be 0. And we just said we can't do that. So now I'm going to go put these two numbers on my number line. Remember, the restriction is always going to be an open circle. I look at the inequality, and it wants ones that are greater than. So that means 1 is also going to be an open circle because it's not equal to. Now I'm going to pick a point to the left and plug in, pick a point in the middle and plug in, and pick a point to the right and plug in. Notice this is greater than, so I'm looking for all the positive answers. So I'm going to go through the calculator steps again. So I need a number to the left of negative 3, so I'm going to choose negative 4. So negative 4 minus 1 divided by, I'm going to use that same number, negative 4 plus 3. And we get a positive answer. Notice I want positive, so I'm going to shade that side. Now I'm going to go pick a number between those, zeros between those. So 0 minus 1 divided by 0 plus 3. And I get a negative. Remember, I don't really care what the number is. I just want to know if it's positive or negative. I want positive, so no shading. Now I want a number to the right of 1. The first number to the right of 1 is 2. So 2 minus 1 divided by 2 plus 3. Remember to put your parentheses in there. And we get another positive answer. So I want the answers to infinity to the left to negative 3, union 1 to positive infinity. Alright, so use these same steps to try 31. Pause your video. Alright, so let's see how you did. So I took the top and said x minus 5 equals 0, so x equals 5. I can never, ever, ever let the bottom equal 0. So if x were negative 8, it would equal 0. So x cannot equal negative 8. I put negative 8 on the number line, open circle. I put 5 on the number line. I looked up here, open circle. I had to go plug in numbers until I found the ones that gave me negatives. If I put a number to the left, I got a positive. If I put a number in the middle, I got a negative. If I put a number to the right, I got a positive. So my answers are between negative 8 and 5. All right, work any part of this review that you need to again. You got a test tomorrow. Good luck.